and a lot of different things. Now, he's vehemently denying all of this, of course, but, this just follows that trend of as soon as, boom, the big headline story, Adrian Peterson, child abuse charges, heading to court, people went to work and they started digging. And that's why I keep saying I'm amazed by these athletes and this was kind of my point, is I'm not amazed that he was abusing or wasn't abusing his finances and all of that. I don't know about that, but I'm amazed that these people don't get in front of their own stories. They know it's coming. Like, how could you sit at home and not know what's coming next? Not know that, man, I did this. And if they found out about this, this, and this, I'm pretty sure they're going to find out about this, but they'll just sit around. Like, I'm just saying, I should get a job as a public relations guy so I could just advise these guys, man. I mean, in 2014, actually, the crime, people tear it down. They've always said that the media tears you down to build you up. But there's nothing that society likes more in today's day and age than a rehabilitation story, than a comeback story, or however you want to put it. So, you're doing yourself better harm to come out. Here's my point. You do yourself so much more good if you tell the same story yourself than if somebody else tells it for you. If you come out ahead of it and go, listen, this was something I was hoping that I could deal with privately, but blah, 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 blah. Here's what's going to happen. Hey, you put it out there first, you get out in front of your narrative. But anyways, my point is that it doesn't surprise me anymore, but it seems to keep surprising these athletes and the people around them. There's the other thing is, how do the teams get surprised by this stuff? Because once the first story comes out, I mean, don't you sick your guys on the same way that those reporters were able to dig up the financial discrepancies in Adrian Peterson's charity books and all. I mean, you're a reporter. You could hire, if you're saying the newspaper's got better sources than the football team, okay, then go hire the newspaper sources. I mean, I'm just saying there's ways to get this information. But these teams, you got to get out in front of it. And I'm amazed at how stupid they are. Not that they do this stuff, because that's whatever. But the stupid part is you've already done it, and then you know it's coming, and they'll just sit there, and then they'll be like, oh, how did people find out about that? Well, how do you think they found out about everything? They find out about everything nowadays, and it just amazes me. And the media though can do funny things with the story too. Here, I'm going to the phones, but this is just a quick aside. My son was at the library yesterday, grabbed a few books. He picked, by the way, one of which I'm looking forward to telling you guys about when I get to the back end of it. I'm already a few chapters into it. It was done by the New York Post writers about Roger Clemens and Brian McNamee and the steroids and all of that. And already some good stuff in this book. I'll tell you guys more about it when I'm done with it. But picked up a cover of Sports Illustrated from a couple of weeks ago. And sit tight on the phone lines. I promise I'm going to the phones in just a moment when I finish this. So I picked up a copy, I think it was the September 15th. So, like 3 weeks ago, edition of Sports Illustrated. And it had the cover was like in night goggle vision of the elevator of Ray Rice. And the big top of the big headline was the real behind the real story of the Ray Rice video and how it affects the NFL. So my point is it leads you to believe that this is an issue where there's going to be a big article about this Ray Rice story. One page. It was page 12. It was a one-page editorial that was done in this week's edition. My point is that a one-page editorial, they dedicated the entire cover to it. And if you go back and look, I went back and looked at the cover afterwards, and real small next to the big headline was page 12. And even then, you would have thought, it starts on page 12. Well, it starts and ends on page 12. Actually, it was just one little article made to seem, of course, because it sells a night vision video, a picture on the cover of Ray Rice sells more issues than if you would have just said, hey, there's a good editorial inside here about Ray Rice. Never underestimate the agenda of the media, especially the mainstream media. Never ever underestimate that they all have an agenda to the story that they tell. I'm going to go to the phones. You tell me a story. Caller, you're next up on the Sports Fix.
J-Rock Dowdy, it's Pittsburgh Steelers week here in Cleveland.
LG, baby. Be careful. I said tell me a story. I don't know where you may tell me a nursery rhyme here about the Steelers and the Browns being an ugly thing. I say this week coming up, LG, it's another week with an opportunity to change your own past. If you want people to stop saying that you can't beat Ben Roethlisberger, that you can't beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, then you do the same thing that you did previously when people said you couldn't win your home opener, when people said you weren't going to be able to win a game on the road. You stop it by winning, not by complaining that people are not giving you the benefit of the doubt. Same thing here. You want this to be a rivalry? Punch Big Ben in the mouth, beat the Steelers, and make it a rivalry again. Easy.
Hey, J-Rock Daddy, I fully expect a Brian Hoyer victory this coming Sunday.
Me too.
It's all going to come down. It's all going to come down to our defensive secondary, though. As we know, Hayden's hip injury may stop him from playing, so they say, and Buster Screen and Gibson may be the two guys that become the victims of Roethlisberger. Maybe we're better off that way. Who knows if Gibson's going to be hungry enough to show that he's worth the first-round draft pick this week. Hopefully the bench time has done this kid some good, and he's learned how to catch on into the NFL. But I'm disgusted with Hayden's play all year long. I haven't seen anything from Joe Hayden that warrants the big contract that they prematurely gave him. They didn't probably have too much of a choice. They wanted to reward the guy from his past performances. But I got to tell you, J-Rock, that's more evidence that the NFL should be a performance-driven paycheck. When you do your job and you do it well week to week, they should base what you make in the game on that. Not let's give this guy $65 million for the next 5 years and hope he can still play to the levels that he's played at in the past, because we haven't seen that from Joe Hayden. But it comes down to this, J-Rock. We got to come out smoking in the first half this week. After the bye, we saw the exact same carbon copy of what we saw in week one when the Browns opened the season in Pittsburgh. This was an inept defense that forgot the basics of tackling football players. How can a professional NFL team look that bad defensively, especially when the head coach was known for his defense? Now, again, they turned it around, thank God, in the second half of the game. We can't afford to keep doing that, J-Rock, because you know as well as I know, sooner or later, things are going to run out. I mean, how many times can you expect Hoyer to come back from behind like that? I mean, there's a lot of comparisons, Cardiac Kid. Here's the one similarity I learned from my friend, and I'm proud to call him my friend, Sam Rutigliano. When Brian Sipe went into a football game, he knew he was going to win that football game. I see those same leadership qualities coming out of Brian Hoyer, and that's why Brian Hoyer is the starting quarterback of this Cleveland Browns team. Not only is he a great quarterback at not making stupid mistakes so far this season, J-Rock, this guy's a cheerleader. You see him on the sidelines running up and down, inspiring his teammates. Let's go, guys, let's go. He never gives up. And that's the kind of leader that this Cleveland Browns football team has lacked over the last 14 years. Who have you seen on the Browns as their starting quarterback, J-Rock, that has the leadership abilities of Brian Hoyer's displaying this year, man?
Brother, you're preaching to the choir. I lead the Brian Hoyer bandwagon, my friend. I've done it for quite some time. You don't have to convince me.
I know we both do.
You're absolutely
both really
right,
do, but there was a lot of skepticism coming out of camp this year. And, of course, the excitement was surrounding the rookie. I'm not even going to mention his name because I don't think it's worth mentioning. I'm glad it didn't.
I said there's no reason to mention the name. That's why.
But there is no reason to mention the name. But what I'm saying to you is I'm glad that they kept the rookie on the sidelines lately, and they're not interrupting the flow of the game with any kind of miscues on the field by exposing the rookie. And you would think that the coaches would have known better than the crap they tried to pull in their one game. But, it was kind of funny to me. But I got to tell you, J-Rock, if this Cleveland Browns team comes out and plays the kind of football we know they're capable of playing, I really believe this team can compete with any team in the NFL this year, man.
I agree. Now, I agree with that. I've said that a bunch of times, but yesterday I said almost that phrase. I said this team, whether you want to believe it or not, now this is not the same as beating every team in the NFL. This isn't saying that they're the best team or anything like that. this team is now, you have not been able to say this in the past, this team is capable of beating any team that it plays, and that's the truth. If they play well, they're good enough to beat any team. That's the truth, and that's a step up from where they were before.
Well, what I'm saying is this, J-Rock. Maybe beating is a little bit too far over the top, but I say compete. They can.
That's
compete.
what I'm saying. I agree.
And,
they can play with
and one
any
thing you
team.
got to admit, man, we're not walking away from our television sets, or you're not seeing a half-empty stadium with this Cleveland Browns team when the third quarter is almost over these days, because you can't dare get up and leave the game now.
Well, I won't lie. I know some people walked and stretched their legs at halftime the other day, but they came back for the second half. That's all that matters. No, I'm with you. I love it, LG. And you know what? You bring up Sipe. I said it the other day. I keep making the Bernie Kosar. You might as well combine the two names. I keep using Kosar because of the hometown aspect, the popularity aspect of it.
There was never. Hoyer is so much more hometown than Bernie was. Sure, Bernie was. Well, yeah,
Bernie was from Youngstown. Exactly. Hoyer's from down the street.
Right,
So,
right,
but I'm with you about the site. When you actually look, Jonathan Knight and I have been texting back and forth about this. Over the last couple of days, that similar thing that really Brian Sipe is who he's more like. He's undersized. He's got the chip on his shoulder. He's never afraid of whatever's going. Like, he'll throw an interception and he'll come right back in the huddle. He's got that California cool where he'll come back in the huddle, and I could care less. If I just threw 5 interceptions, we're still going to win this game. We're going to go for a touchdown. He was never afraid to sling the ball, and the guys believed in him because of that. And that, a lot of that.
And you know what, J-Rock? One thing I said earlier in this conversation, and I've talked to Sam Ritigliano continuously in the past about Brian Sipe and Brian Sipe's ability. And before every single Cleveland Browns football game started, whether you want to refer to them as the Cardiac Kids or not, Brian Sipe told Coach Ritigliano, "Don't worry, we're going to win this football game." So even though a lot of those wins came in the last minute and a half of the football game, Brian Sipe had that tangible thing of winning before the game even started, before the opening kickoff. This guy's confidence level was that high. And I see the same thing happening with Brian Hoyer. No matter how far behind this Cleveland Browns football team is, there's no give up in that guy, and that guy's cheerleading the rest of his offensive team for getting back into a football game as he has, and that there you cannot teach, man.
Nope. And you know what? The additional thing that separates Hoyer from some of these other guys, though, because think about it, and I'm not comparing. What I'm saying is, let's say like a guy like Charlie Fry, who was relatively local, like they had that same passion. Of course, a guy like Charlie Fry wanted to win for the Cleveland Browns. But here's the difference, is they can believe it all they want. They can believe it in their heart. They can look in the huddle and they can look you in the eyes and say, we're going to do this. We're going to climb that mountain. We're going to win this game. But Brian Hoyer, the difference is he didn't just talk it, and not just him, the whole team, but they didn't just talk it. He's done it. So now when he looks at guys and says, remember Nashville? Hey, remember Pittsburgh? Remember Minnesota? Remember whatever game you want to remember? And they go, hell yeah, we remember. Let's go win this game.
Well, you know what he shows us, J-Rock? He shows us the true mark of a champion. You could kick him in the teeth all you want. He keeps getting back up, and he keeps fighting 100%. Until the final seconds tick off the clock, and then hopefully the offense has the football when them final seconds tick off the clock.
Well, that's the other thing people forget about, is that in the NFL, we use cliches like it's a pass-fail league or whatever. That's all coach cliches. But at the end of the day, we worry too much about the statistical analysis, which, by the way, his stats are fantastic if you were just going by stats, but I don't care about that. At the end of the day, I mean, it really is about the results. I could care if you threw 4 interceptions a game and we went somehow 12-4. That works for me. I know some people are laughing at me right now. You see it with guys like Tony Romo. I mean, the Cowboys are doing fairly decent this year. I think Romo's already has maybe 6 interceptions. I could be a little off on that number, J-Rock. But some of the top-rating quarterbacks in the league this year are leading in interceptions as well. Of course, they have a lot more pass attempts than Brian Hoyer,
But one thing we got to like about Hoyer is this guy's mental toughness, man. He's
not just Hoyer,
He's not going to make the stupid mistakes.
Speaking of that, stupid mistakes, it's not just Hoyer. So far, obviously, a focus of this coaching staff was that, protecting the ball, because